The Nevada sun hammered down on the cracked earth, turning the air into a visible shimmer. A lone figure, barefoot and bleeding, stumbled across the salt flats, leaving erratic tracks in the pale dust. 16-year-old Sky Madison's shirt was torn, her breath's ragged gasps that scraped her throat raw. Behind her, the skeletal remains of a white sedan smoked faintly against the horizon, a monument to violence she couldn't recall. Fear, primal and cold, was the only clear thing in her shattered mind. Don't stop. Don't look back, she spotted it then, a low, ramshackle structure clinging to the edge of a mesa, bleached by sun and wind. Hope, fragile as a desert bloom, flickered. She poured her last reserves into a sprint, collapsing against the weathered door, pounding with bloodied fists. Please, she screamed, her voice cracking. Don't let them find me. The door creaked open slowly, revealing not warmth, but a profound stillness. A man stood there, lean and weathered as the mesquite wood framing his porch. His eyes, the color of flint, held no surprise, only a deep, watchful intensity. Jonas. 10 years a ghost on the outskirts of the dying town of Solace, a man who traded words for silence. Trauma or choice? The town speculated, but no one knew. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stared, and then, a single, deliberate nod. As Sky's legs finally buckled, he caught her before she hit the hard-packed earth, lifting her with surprising strength, cradling her trembling form like something precious and already fractured by the world. Take a break, subscribe to our channel, we are building a community where kindness is our most cherished and honored word. Back to the story. Inside the shack, time felt suspended. Dust motes danced in a single shaft of light piercing a cracked windowpane. He laid her gently on a worn couch covered by a faded Navajo blanket. The only sounds were her choked sobs and the rhythmic click-click of an ancient percolator he set on the rusted stove. He moved with quiet efficiency, fetching water, a clean rag. When his calloused fingers brushed her temple to check a cut, she flinched violently. He froze. Then, hesitantly, a sound emerged from him. Not a word, but a hum. Low, rough, uneven, like a river finding its course after a long drought. An old melody Sky didn't recognize, yet it seeped into her bones, a counterpoint to the terror. Her sobs hitched, then stilled. She watched him through tear-blurred eyes. His gaze was distant, fixed on a memory only he could see. They said. Sky whispered, her voice raw. They said I hurt someone. Killed them. Back at the house. But I don't remember. I swear I don't. She gripped the blanket edge, knuckles white. Fragmented images stabbed her mind, blinding flashes like camera bulbs, a woman's high-pitched scream, the sickening crunch of breaking glass. A dark shape looming. Then nothing. Jonas retrieved a small, dog-eared notepad and a pencil stub from a drawer. He handed them to her. Her hand shook violently as she scrawled, SKYE. Below it, a single desperate word, running. In the harsh light of midday, Sheriff Roy Palmer squinted at the wreckage nestled in a shallow arroyo. The white sedan looked like a discarded toy crushed by a giant fist. Deputy Mike Kane, young and eager but with eyes that never quite met Palmer's directly, radioed in, Unit 3 to dispatch. Confirmed vehicle ID. White Honda Accord, plates match Sky Madison's mother's registration. Significant front-end impact, driver's side. He paused, swallowing hard. Signs of struggle inside. Blood in the back seat. No driver. Palmer kicked at a piece of chrome trim, sending dust swirling. Sky Madison. 16. Vanished after the crash. Mother's frantic back in Carson City. He crouched, peering into the mangled rear compartment. The dark stain on the upholstery was stark. Kane shifted his weight. What about the passenger, Sheriff? That blood. Palmer straightened, his weathered face grim. Whoever sat back there, Mike, lost a hell of a lot more than Sky did. His gaze swept the desolate landscape. Too much blood for a simple crash injury. Back in the shack's dim coolness, Sky sipped weak tea, the warmth a small anchor. Her eyes wandered, landing on a small, faded photograph taped to a cracked mirror above a dry sink. A woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, her arms around a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, grinning widely, missing a front tooth. Sky's breath caught. The woman. She looked exactly like Sky's own mother. A cold dread snaked through her veins. Impossible. Jonas, his back turned as he meticulously wiped the stove, didn't see her intense scrutiny. Sky noticed the subtle tremor in his hands as he poured more tea. She turned slowly, the mug heavy in her grasp. Jonas? Her voice was barely audible. Is that, your family? He went utterly still. No answer came. But his shoulders tensed, the muscles in his jaw working beneath the stubble. And when he finally turned, his flinty eyes held a reflection of her own shock, a dawning, horrified recognition. Later, while Jonas tended to a stubborn pump outside, Sky's restless curiosity overcame her fear. Driven by the uncanny resemblance, she searched the sparse room. Beneath the narrow cot, hidden behind a loose floorboard, she found a small, tin box. Inside, carefully preserved, were 3 brittle newspaper clippings. One headline screamed, "Local teacher brutally killed in home invasion. Daughter, 8, missing. Police baffled." Below it was a grainy photo of the same woman from the mirror. Eleanor Jonas, a teacher. Just like Sky's mother. The date, 10 years ago. Sky's hands trembled so violently the clippings rustled like dry leaves. That night, Sky's sleep was a battleground. Flashes of memory detonated behind her eyelids, a woman's scream, abruptly cut off. Heavy footsteps on stairs. A man's voice, rough and panicked, asterisk, "You weren't supposed to be here. Damn kid." Asterisk then, a blinding white light. And silence. She bolted upright on the couch, gasping, drenched in cold sweat, the phantom scent of gunpowder and copper thick in her nostrils. Jonas was there instantly, a silhouette against the moonlit window, radiating alarm. "I remember." Sky choked out, her voice thick with tears and terror. I think someone was trying to hurt my mom. I walked in, and I saw him." She clutched her head. "His face. I saw his face." Jonas didn't hesitate. He grabbed the notepad and pencil, thrusting them towards her. He wrote one urgent word, "Draw." Her hand shook, but the image burned in her mind. Slowly, deliberately, she sketched, a strong jaw, close-set eyes under heavy brows, a distinctive crooked nose, a thin, cruel mouth. She pushed the pad back to Jonas. He stared at the drawing. His face drained of color, his hands turning icy. The face she'd drawn, it was Deputy Mike Kane. Jonas walked out into the yard, the desert wind whipping his worn shirt around him. He stared at the indifferent moon, his chest tight. 10 years of silence, 10 years of searching for Paige in the emptiness, 10 years of being dismissed as a grieving madman. And now, this girl, this ghost from a different tragedy, points a finger at the law. He took slow, deliberate breaths, the desert air cold in his lungs. Then, with grim finality, he turned and methodically checked every window latch, every door bolt. Sky watched him from the dim doorway, the sketch clutched in her hand. "You know him, don't you?" she whispered. Jonas didn't turn. Didn't nod. But the way his fist clenched, knuckles white against the doorframe, was answer enough. At the Solace Sheriff's substation, a simple note, folded roughly, landed on Deputy Kane's desk. Scrawled in block letters, "She remembers." Kane's easy smile vanished. He crumpled the note savagely, his knuckles white. A cold fury settled in his eyes. He grabbed his keys and sidearm. Sheriff Palmer emerged from his office, coffee mug in hand. "Where you headed so fast, Mike?" Kane forced a casual shrug, pocketing the crumpled note. "Got a tip, Sheriff. Possible sighting of the Madison girl out near the old Miller place. Gonna check it out." Palmer took a slow sip, his gaze steady on Kane. "Miller place? That's out past Jonas's shack." He nodded slowly. "All right. Radio in regular." He watched Kane stride out, the door slamming behind him. Palmer's eyes narrowed. Something had been off since the crash. Kane's eagerness to write it off as an accident, his insistence the passenger blood was irrelevant, and now this sudden lead. Solace was a small town, secrets rarely stayed buried forever. He picked up his own keys. He wouldn't radio Kane. He'd follow. Back at the shack, Sky unearthed another secret. Tucked beneath the floorboard near the tin box was a small, leather-bound journal. The pages were brittle, the ink faded. Page after page contained only one name, written over and over with increasing desperation, sometimes carved deep into the paper, Page. Then, on the very last page, a single, heartbreaking line, "She never screamed." Jonas walked in as Sky traced the name with a trembling finger. For a fleeting second, raw anger flashed across his face, not at her, but at the cruel universe that forced this pain into the open. He took a deep, shuddering breath, then knelt beside her, taking the journal gently. He opened to a blank page and wrote, his hand steady now with purpose, "Paige was my daughter. Taken the night Eleanor died. They said she ran. Got lost. But she was taken. I know it." Sky's blood ran cold. "Taken? By Kane." Jonas met her gaze, his eyes holding 10 years of unspeakable grief and certainty. He nodded once, sharply. Sky's hands began to shake uncontrollably. The parallels were monstrous. "My mom, she's a teacher too. In Carson City. Oh God. Jonas, what if he—" She couldn't finish. Jonas gripped her shoulder, a silent vow passing between them. Deputy Kane's pickup rolled to a silent stop a quarter-mile from Jonas's shack, hidden behind a cluster of boulders. He killed the lights and engine, the desert silence pressing in. He checked his service weapon, his face a mask of cold determination. "She remembers," the note echoed. "Couldn't have that." He moved with practiced stealth towards the darkened shack. Inside, Jonas moved with a lethal calm he hadn't known in a decade. From a locked trunk at the foot of his bed, he retrieved an old, well-oiled Colt revolver. He checked the chambers. Loaded. Sky watched, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Jonas," she pleaded, grabbing his arm. "You don't have to do this. We can run. We can find the sheriff." He turned to her. Tears, unshed but glistening, brimmed in his eyes. He released her hand and raised his own. With deliberate, sharp movements, he signed, *Sky. Do, he didn't need to explain. Sky understood the debt he felt, the promise to his daughter, the need to finally face the monster. The door exploded inward with a splintering crash. Kane stood framed in the moonlight, gun drawn, scanning the shadowy interior. "Sky." He called, his voice unnervingly smooth, almost gentle. "Come on out, honey. It's Deputy Kane. No one's gonna hurt you. We just want to get you home safe." He stepped cautiously inside, sweeping his gun left and right. The shack seemed empty. Desert wind whistled mournfully through the broken windows. He moved towards the back room, his boot snagging on a nearly invisible wire Jonas had strung taut across the doorway. Kane stumbled forward with a curse, hitting the floor hard. Before he could recover, the unmistakable metallic click of a hammer being cocked echoed inches behind his head. Jonas stepped from the deeper shadows near the cold stove. The revolver was steady in his hand. And then, a sound Kane had never heard, a sound no one in Solace had heard in 10 years, Jonas's voice. Hoarse, rusty, vibrating with barely contained fury, but clear. "She remembers you, Cain." Cain twisted his head, shock contorting his features. "Jonas? You can talk." I stopped, Jonas rasped, the words feeling foreign and heavy on his tongue, after Paige. "Because no one listened. No one believed." He took a step closer. "They will now." Cain's shock morphed into a sneer. "Your word? Against the deputies? You're still just the crazy mute who lost his kid. Who's gonna believe you? Then let this speak." Skye stepped from behind a tattered curtain, holding up the sketch of Cain's face, her own expression fierce. "And let me speak." Suddenly, blinding headlights flooded the shack through the broken door and windows. Another cruiser skidded to a halt outside, dust clouding the air. Sheriff Palmer burst through the ruined doorway, his own weapon drawn, taking in the scene, Cain on the floor, Skye defiantly holding the drawing, Jonas standing over Cain, gun aimed, speaking. "Jonas? Skye." Palmer's voice was tight. "What in God's name is going on here?" His eyes flicked to Cain. "Mike? He tried to kill me." Skye shouted, thrusting the sketch towards Palmer. "At my house. He killed Jonas's wife. He took Paige." Palmer's gaze snapped to the drawing, then to Cain. "You said the passenger in that car died, Mike. That the blood was too much." His voice was dangerously low. "Then why was the back seat empty? Where's the body?" Cain saw his chance. He lunged sideways, scrambling for his fallen gun. But Jonas was a man possessed. He moved with startling speed, slamming Cain back against the rough adobe wall with a force that drove the breath from the deputy's lungs. Palmer was on him instantly, wrenching Cain's arms behind his back, snapping cuffs onto his wrists. "We'll need more than a sketch and accusations, Jonas," Palmer muttered, breathing heavily, though his eyes betrayed a dawning horror. "He had a scar," Skye said, her voice suddenly cold and clear. "On his left wrist. A snake tattoo. Coiled, like it was striking. I saw it when he grabbed me." She locked eyes with Cain, who flinched. Palmer froze. Slowly, deliberately, he yanked up the sleeve of Cain's uniform shirt. There it was, etched into the skin, a coiled rattlesnake, head reared back, fangs bared. Palmer's face went ashen. His hands trembled as he stared at the tattoo, then at Cain. That tattoo, it was described in the initial report. The night Eleanor Jonas was killed. The night Paige vanished. A witness saw it on the arm of a man running from the house. His voice was barely a whisper. "You were there." Cain stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, offering nothing but stony silence. Skye turned to Jonas, seeing the raw agony in his eyes. "Your daughter, she's gone," she whispered, the hope she'd felt for Paige crumbling. Jonas shook his head slowly, his gaze never leaving Cain. "I never found the body," he whispered, the words thick with grief and a terrifying, lingering hope. Skye paled, the implications chilling her more than the desert night. The Solace substation, usually sleepy, buzzed with an electric tension. Files, long buried under dust and indifference, were hauled out. Palmer worked grimly, methodically, surrounded by the detritus of old cases. Jonas sat rigidly in a corner chair, Skye beside him, wrapped in a blanket Palmer had provided. But one file was conspicuously absent, Paige Jonas, missing person report #07-451. Palmer slammed a drawer shut. 8 years old. There has to be a file. Standard procedure. He turned to the elderly part-time clerk, Martha, who handled records. "Martha? Paige Jonas?" Martha adjusted her glasses, peering at the logbook. Her finger traced down a page. "Here it is. Initiated, but then," she frowned. Says sealed. Order of D. Kane. Palmer's fist came down on the desk, making Sky jump. Asterisk sealed asterisk. On whose authority? Kane was a rookie then. His eyes were dark pits of rage and betrayal. What else did he bury, Martha? What else did he make disappear? Jonas rose slowly, crossing the room to stand before Palmer's desk. He placed his hands flat on the scarred wood, leaning forward, his voice a low, dangerous rasp. The truth. About Paige. About Eleanor. About why he came after Sky. He glanced at Sky. Her mother, she's safe. Palmer nodded curtly. Spoke to Carson PD, shaken, but unharmed. Reported a break-in attempt 2 nights ago. Man matching Kane's description fled. She never saw Sky after school that day. Sky sagged with relief, but Jonas's focus remained laser-sharp on Palmer. Kane sealed Paige's file because he knew she wasn't just lost, Jonas pressed. He knew where she was taken. Or who took her. He was covering, not just for himself that night, but for someone else. The implication hung heavy in the air. Kane wasn't working alone 10 years ago, and likely wasn't now. Exhaustion finally pulled Sky into a fitful sleep on a cot in the substation's back room. But her dreams offered no refuge. She was back in a burning house, not her own, but the one from Jonas's photo. Smoke choked her. Flames licked the walls. Panic seized her. Then, a small hand grasped hers. A girl in a bright red hoodie, her face obscured by smoke and shadow, pulled her urgently through the inferno, leading her towards a broken window, towards safety. Sky stumbled, coughing, and the girl turned. For a split second, Sky saw her face, pale, determined, familiar eyes wide with fear. The girl from the photo. Paige. She pointed towards the window. Asterisk, they're coming. You have to run. Now. Asterisk. Sky woke with a gasp, bolting upright, the phantom smell of smoke still in her nostrils. Paige, she cried out. Jonas, who had been dozing in a chair beside her, was instantly alert. Sheriff Palmer appeared in the doorway. She led me out. Sky gasped, pointing wildly, though the photo wasn't there. In the fire. I saw her. She saved me. Red hoodie, just like in your picture, Jonas. She's real. She's out there. Jonas knelt beside the cot, his face a mask of agonized hope. Red hoodie, he whispered, the words catching. Paige, she wore it, that night. Always. His hand found Sky's, gripping it tightly. The dream felt too vivid, too real, to dismiss. Palmer entered the room fully, his expression grim. We ran the plates again, Jonas. Deeper search. That white sedan Sky crashed. It wasn't registered to her mother's address in Carson City. He paused, letting the weight sink in. It was registered to an Eleanor Jonas. At your old address. 10 years ago. Jonas stared, comprehension dawning like a hammer blow. That was Paige's car. Her mother's car. His voice broke. But how? Why was Sky driving it? Sky gripped his hand tighter, a new terror rising. Then who was I running from? Who was in the car with me? Who bled in the back seat? Palmer's face was pale, etched with lines of dread. That's the thing, kids. Kane's locked up, but he's not talking. Whoever was with you in that car, whoever bled out, they didn't just want Sky silenced. They didn't want Paige's car found. And they definitely don't want Paige found. He looked out the window into the pre-dawn gray. Kane was a deputy. He had resources, access. He covered tracks for a decade. Who was he covering for? The first rays of dawn painted the desert in hues of rose and gold, but the beauty was lost on Jonas and Sky. Guided by a desperate urgency and the fragmented clues from Sky's dream and Kane's sealed files, they drove Jonas's ancient pickup towards the labyrinthine canyons north of Solace, a place rumored to be used by runners, fugitives, and those who wished to vanish. Sheriff Palmer, needing to process Kane formally and alert state investigators, had reluctantly let them go, promising backup soon. But Jonas couldn't wait. They parked where the rugged track became impassable. The silence was immense, broken only by the cry of a distant hawk. They hiked into the deepening shadows of a narrow canyon, scanning every crevice, every overhang. Then, Sky spotted it, a flash of crimson against the dun-colored rock. Snagged on a skeletal ocotillo branch, flapping wildly in the canyon wind, was a faded red hoodie, small-sized, worn thin. Jonas froze, touching the fabric with trembling fingers, a choked sound escaping him. A whisper, carried on the wind, seemed to echo around them. Faint, broken, undeniably young, asterisk, they're coming. You have to run again. Please, asterisk. Heart pounding, they followed faint, weathered tire tracks deeper into the canyon system, the walls towering above them. The tracks ended abruptly at the base of a sheer cliff. But there, cunningly hidden behind a massive boulder and a curtain of thorny catclaw acacia, was a low opening, a natural cave, augmented with stacked rocks and a piece of corrugated metal. A makeshift shelter. Jonas pulled aside the metal sheet. Inside, the space was small, dusty, but showed signs of recent habitation, empty water canteens, protein bar wrappers, a rolled-up blanket. And on the smooth rock wall near the back, scratched with a sharp stone in a childish, yet determined hand, was a message. I'm still here. But not for long. He's close. P. Sky turned to Jonas, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was fierce with certainty. She's alive, Jonas. Right now. I know it. Jonas stared at the message, then out at the vast, indifferent desert. He touched the scratched P. A decade of searching, a decade of silence, compressed into this single, fragile point of hope. He met Sky's gaze and nodded. A lifetime of sorrow and dawning resolve in his eyes. And in the vast silence of the canyon, beneath the relentless sun, another sound intruded, faint at first, then growing steadily louder, bouncing off the sandstone walls, the guttural roar of a powerful engine, approaching fast.